Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name is Matt Frankel. I'm a certified financial planner. And today we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked topics in personal finance, and that is establishing and building an emergency fund. Before we do, please click subscribe to my channel to keep up with all of my personal finance and investing content. And check out a message from our sponsor, The Motley Fool, by going to the link you see on your screen right now, where you can get the 10 best stocks to buy for free. So, how much of an emergency fund do you need? The short answer is, and most financial planners feel the same way, that about 6 months worth of expenses is a good target to shoot for. Keep in mind, this does not include retirement savings. A lot of people say, I don't need an emergency fund. I have a 401k at work or I have an IRA. So, in addition to that, financial planners, myself included, recommend that you need about 6 months of expenses in a readily accessible, non retirement place. So you might be surprised how much this is. In the description to this video, I've included a calculator that can help you determine what you should aim for in your emergency fund if you're going for that 6 month target. You might be surprised just how many expenses you have that would have to be paid even in an emergency situation like you lost your job or something like that. So, having said that, there's no one size fits all rule. It's not that the 6 month rule is the best target for everybody. It could be yours could be more or less your ideal emergency fund, depending on your personal circumstances. Just a few questions to ask yourself. Are you married or single? And if you're married, do both spouses work? If both spouses work, the chances of both people becoming employed at any one given time are a lot lower than if you're a single individual or if you're a married couple with just one job. So you might be able to get away with a little bit less than 6 months because the odds are more in your favor against a complete income disruption. Do you have children? If you have children, like I do, you know very well that your expenses are a lot higher than they would be if you didn't have children. So take that into account when planning your emergency fund. Everyone wants their kids to have financial security, so keep that in mind. That's something that should definitely play into the calculation. How stable is your job? That's another thing that's often overlooked. I've worked in both ends of the spectrum. I started my career as a high school teacher, very stable job. My contract got renewed year after year. My income was very stable. So that's completely different than right now, where I am self employed and work for myself. I do some freelance projects, things like that. Um, my income's a lot less stable now than it was back then. So, a stable income, you could probably get away with a smaller emergency fund than 6 months worth of expenses. An unstable income, you might need a little bit more. And another thing to ask yourself, how is your health? If you're a relatively healthy person, obviously there's no way to completely predict it, whether or not you're going to get sick or injured or anything like that. Hopefully you don't. But if you already have some health conditions that could make it necessary to take time off work and lose income and things like that, take that into account when figuring out how much of an emergency fund you need as well. So the 6 month figure, especially if you use that calculator in the description, might be a pretty intimidating sum, especially if you're starting from scratch. It takes a lot of people years to get that in emergency savings. It certainly took me years to get that in emergency savings. So you don't have to get there right away. And what I often tell people to do is come up with a more short term achievable goal, say $500 or $1,000. If you can set aside $1,000 in a readily accessible emergency fund, you're in better shape than over half of the United States population. The whole point of an emergency fund is to prevent setbacks in life from derailing your overall financial condition, from having to, charge things on credit cards, from having to ask relatives for money, from having to tap into your retirement savings, things like that. So even $1,000 emergency savings will cover things like if you get a flat tire, if you have to go to the doctor unexpectedly and get a doctor's bill. You don't want to have to go into debt every time something like that happens because that leads to a cycle of debt that's very hard to break, and a cycle of, okay, I can't invest any money for retirement this month because I had a flat tire. So aim for a more attainable goal like that. One of my best suggestions is to make the process automatic. Maybe set up a $50 transfer every time you get paid into a savings account, a totally separate place from your checking account that is just there for an emergency fund. You'd be surprised how easy this becomes once you hit that, say, $1,000 milestone to set another one, maybe $2,000, and keep this process going. Make it automatic, keep it separate so you're not tempted to use it for other things. And you'll be surprised how much your emergency fund builds up and how much peace of mind it will give you to have that extra cash there in case you need it. The first time I had used my emergency fund, I had two flat tires at the same time. Actually, the first time I had to actually use my emergency fund, it was actually a very pleasant feeling writing that writing that check because I knew I wasn't sacrificing anything else financially in my life at that moment in order to cover that unforeseen expense. Having an emergency fund gives you that peace of mind. It helps you keep your investment plan on track. It helps you keep your retirement plan on track. It helps you from having to cut out the things you love doing in life. And it's just a very, very important part of overall financial well being and one that should be taken very seriously. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to click subscribe if you don't subscribe to my channel already. And as always, this video is sponsored by the Motley Fool. Be sure to visit www.fool.com/Frankel to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now.